Liza, this is Thumbs. Thumbs, this is Liza. Yes, she's a new dog. Are you going to be a good boy? Are you? Yes! What a good boy. You want to go on your perch? Come on, I want you to do some work. A good boy. What? What? Yes. You stay there. Oh, Thumbs. I'm not ready. Liza, sit down. Sit. Cool, you haven't forgotten a thing, have you, you old devil? Stay there, Liza. Come on, my boy. This time. Well, that's one way of doing it. It's all right. Sit down. Liza, sit. Liza, sit. Liza. Good girl. Oh, what have you done? You must know. Come on, good girl. It's all right. He's not going to hurt you. Look at him. Liza, look at him. See, Tamale, I'll show you. Tamale. Look. See, he's not going to hurt you. You coward. There's a good girl. She's frightened of him. Right, that's your lot. Oh, no, you don't. Oh, no, you don't. Do you want to have another go? Just one more. It's a good boy. When I was a baby, there were peregrines sitting on the washing basket that I was in, but I must admit I don't remember it. I first had a kestrel when I was about 6, called Pudding, and my sister had one called Dumpling. Both my two sisters have had birds, but they didn't have the same sort of animal madness I did. I mean, I had a tame deer for 14 years, and we had a white pigeon called Clementine, 2 lambs called Ross and Cromarty, 5 dogs, Trudy, Gibby, Lena, Candy and Emily, and lots of birds, but I don't remember their names. My father was working for James Robertson Justice at the time. He worked as James's professional falconer. Through childhood, I was really more interested in horses, I think, although I often had a bird. But I only really became keen on it when I was in my teens. I never wanted to do it as a living. I always said, right, this is the last thing I want to do as a living. There's a good girl. Hello. How are you feeling? Are you feeling better? You want some too? Henrietta, you want some? Come on then. Come on then. You're putting it all over Henrietta. You eat that while I have a quick look at your tootsie, okay? First of all, I wanted to be an opera singer.
Come here.
In fact, I got into a Swiss opera school when I was only about 14. They offered me a place in Switzerland. And then it just sort of fell through. Mother used to be a dancer and I was very interested in acting, and so I went to drama school in Guildford for 2 years. And then I got into the Royal Academy of Music for 3 years, doing singing. So I went back to wanting to be an opera singer. But there are thousands of other people who want to be opera singers as well. I never really would have made the top. And I'm not the sort of person that likes to be in the chorus. I couldn't have coped with it. And I couldn't give up Birds of Prey. Wherever I went, when I was in Guildford in a bedsitter, I had 2 tawny owls, 2 canaries, a dove, a lizard that bit people, including myself. I had a cat and a Labrador and a bedsitter. Not bad, eh? It was ever so crowded. And then in London I had a boyfriend, an African grey parrot that swore like a trooper, 2 macaws who when they started screaming you could hear them 3 streets away, a tortoise that permanently tried to get underneath the piano and never could, a bull terrier, a Burmese cat, a Siamese cat and a kestrel from Baghdad. So in the end I gave up and thought, nuts, wherever I go I end up like Animal Farm, so I might as well take it up as a living.
There we are. Now it's important because she's going to be a demonstration bird for her to get used to people in quantities, and this is what she is particularly nervous about. The method that you use is that when you first pick the bird up in preparation for training it, you'll get the bird comfortable on your fist and get used to you, and that's the beginning of the taming process. And then you'll get the bird to feed on your fist by having meat in here, so the bird is comfortable feeding on your fist and associates your gloved hand with food. Then you'd put her on a line and you'd go a few yards away and you'd just extend it and extend it like that until the bird was flying a great distance to you, in fact, and reliably. And then almost before the bird realized what was happening, you'd turn her loose and she would come.
You see the bend of the flight feathers as he comes in. And he can have the rest of his food if he waits for it. Now, he hasn't got very many manners, I'm afraid. And I'm going to offer him a big piece of meat, which he's going to swallow in about 2 seconds flat.
This is Mozart. He's a European eagle owl, the largest owl in the world. Can we see how he can turn his head? See, he can revolve around. He can actually go all the way. See how they? He can go all the way around, more than a whole circle. That's because he's got his eyes at the front. Now, if you're very quiet, we'll go down the line and maybe you can have a little touch of Mozart. That's right. Well done. Well done. There we go. Turn him around. You'll be able to get a shot later on. He's comfortable like he's now. Yeah, very good. Okay. No, you don't want to? There you go. Well done.
Thursday work giving an eagle a bath. I'm getting soaked.
I certainly am a conservationist. Most of the falconers I know are conservationists. People have actually said to me, how can you talk about conservation and birds of prey? Birds of prey eat things. Well, so do flaming tigers, and they're getting very rare and everyone's worried about them. It makes no difference whether they eat something or not. And certainly most of the top birds and animals, the carnivorous ones, are very important to human beings because they're a barometer. If something goes wrong with them in the wild, then you can usually point out to the same thing affecting human beings. So the biggest part of any conservation job, I think, is teaching people and putting over ideas to people in a way that it's realistic and understandable. If I didn't have as many birds as we do, I in fact wouldn't have the birds tethered. But in our situation where we have a line of about 16 falcons, when I walk down the line to pick one up, all of them bait towards me because they hope it's their turn. Once they've had their turn, they've got food inside them and they just sit there and they're quite happy. But before they're flown, they're all excited. Is it me, Mum? Oh, good, good, good.
Dinner time.
If I had them in aviaries that were wire-fronted, they'd hurt themselves because they would just smack into the wire. So keeping them tethered is a much safer way for them. When you consider how much time in the wild they spend sitting down anyway, they seem to take to it with no problems at all. There are a lot of people who think that no bird should be kept in a cage, that all birds should be free, and they are what I would call the protectionists rather than the conservationists. The RSPB is a protectionist group, it's not a conservation group, there's no doubt about it, and most of the others are as well. It's fine to say, right, put a law, protect them, no one must have them, but it goes no way to learning anything about them. Certainly birds of prey aren't unhappy in aviaries. I mean, I know that. Having been to Africa and seen them in the wild, I sometimes feel, gosh, they look so fantastic in the wild, it seems a shame to keep them in an aviary. But you've got to be realistic. They don't have the same brain we do. No animal does. They don't think of freedom. It's not a concept they understand. If they understood it, they would understand how to untie the knot and off they'd go. So I like to think that birds of prey in captivity are doing two jobs. To start with, it keeps the nucleus of that species safe, so that if the worst came to the worst and something did happen in the wild and they were all wiped out, then there would be enough left in captivity once the problem in the wild was solved, and it's no point in releasing them while that problem is still there. Once that is solved, to return them back to the wild. And I think that is the duty of mankind, because we are the people who have screwed up the world in the first place. Birds of prey in zoos do a tremendous job because, let's face it, if 56 million people in this country all went bird watching, you wouldn't have any damn birds left. There'd be no countryside left because there isn't room for them all to go. Those that don't go out have the opportunity of seeing them and learning about them and understanding them under controlled situations such as zoos or bird gardens, or in our case the Falconry Centre. And I think that does a tremendous amount of good. The zoos should be a lot more into talking to the general public than they are. One of the reasons the Falconry Centre is popular is that because we fly birds 4 or 5 times a day, not only do they see the birds fly, but they have someone in front of them they can talk to. The personal touch, no doubt about it, works every time, and it would be very easy for most zoos to do it.
Coming into an egg too? Yes.
Where did Danny go?
Grandma! Look what I've got. Oh, what's that? It's Snapper. She'll bite you. Right. Hello.
What I want to do is see if she'll eat this.
What's that, Snapper?
Don't say things like that to Bramble in front of the public. How'd you break an egg? Excuse me, Danny.
What's this? What's this, Bramble? Yes. Oh, she likes it. Good boy, Danny. Do you want a bit too? Well, your head was used to crack it open. Do you want a bit too?
I gave them eggs at about 5 weeks old. This one's a bit young. She's only just standing up today. So I'm just giving her a taste for them.
Ow! Snapper. I think Snapper is a very good name for you. Get off my nose. Ooh. That hurts. Blood. Jove, it'll root you.
You know why you're called an Egyptian vulture? Do you? Do you? Do you? It's because you're on the Egyptian tombs. You're supposed to be the symbol of something or other, I forget what, but I think it's fertility. Heaven alone knows why. Look at the state of you. Your brother and sister live in Africa now. They do. They've gone out to Zimbabwe. No stealing wedding rings. No. You can steal other people's, but not mine. Well, I'm not the only one. I'm the best, but I'm not the only woman falconer. And they're not vast numbers of them. I don't know why. It is definitely male-dominated. It's a pain in the arse, actually. It always annoys me intensely. I can be standing with a bird on my fist next to a totally strange man who I've never met in my life before, and people will come up and they will ask the guy next to me questions about the bird. And that gets me very annoyed. You can imagine. I mean, it's not the sort of thing I would put up with. I think I'm beginning to cope with it. I used to get very aggressive, but now I get to the point where I can laugh. And I'm confident enough in myself to know that eventually people will listen to what I say. Yes. Now tomorrow, chaps, I've got to go and give 2 lectures at Pickle Nash School.
Where is that?
Well, it's only down in Newent, so at least it's nice and quiet and nice and
Secondary school?
No, thank God. Oh, I don't think I'll ever get out of there alive. But Jan, will you stop buggering up the flowers? You got no soul. Thank you, Simon.
Sure, that was a lump of plasticine down there.
I think I'll put him to bed in a minute.
When are we going to finish that contraption out the back, the Marley? Presumably that will be a job to go on over the winter, to get all the boards up and stuff.
Yeah, we've got all those materials, but I mean, the eagle over is going to cost thousands. And that's something we've got to wait to do.
So can we borrow the money in March when we've got money coming in
that sort of thing
April?
We can do, yeah.
And then we also want to make the boards in the museum so that the whole thing will swing back on a
hinge.
On a hinge. Yeah. Have another tune mime.
What about the actual weathering grounds themselves?
Yeah, we might have £1,000 from the money that Bovis gave us and want back, but they said they'd let us have some of it because we can't become a charity. That might come through, I hope, in the next few months, and we might be able to start building a bit of hospital for the injured birds that come in.
Because that's going to be a long wall that to build, isn't it? You think you're getting brickies in to build that, if you're going to actually build it out of brick?
Well, you'll be good enough by then, Frank.
But I mean,
Christ alone knows what that wall will look like then.
If you're
like this.
rustic. When you build the hospital, presumably you're going to have a firm in to do build the main walls.
That depends on how rich we are at the time.
I can't see why, really.
Anyway, we've got to have work for you buggers or you'll all be out of a job.
That's just what water in there.
Yeah, that's the humidity to help them hatch. But now, hooray, we've got the last one.
Why is it they need water to help hatch?
Because they need water so they don't lose too much of the body weight through the shell of the egg, and also particularly when they're hatching so the membrane doesn't get dried out. Hello. Look at it. You'd never think it was in an egg 12 hours ago, would you?
So he'll be flying in, what, about 10 weeks, 10 or 11 weeks?
Yep, and then we'll get somebody to train him. And then you can go catching bunnies with socks and shoes.
You just called it he?
Well,
She.
chance would be a fine thing. I think we'd better go and bung it in the other incubator and feed it. Right, you monster. Time to go. You hungry?
Not yet.
Any minute now.
He's gonna eat it. Yeah, he's hungry.
He's bored. He's too hot again. That's the trouble with this weather. He has panting a bit. I have to turn it down a bit more. Hello, my son. What have we got? 42 dead. Oh no, we're not allowed to say dead. 42 exactly. You haven't done a real tiny owl yet, have you? Now look, everyone tells you they shut their eyes. Look, they don't shut their eyes. It's only just
They open them and then
less than a day old and its eyes are open. But they shut them as soon as they've opened them. Now you've got to find the real tiny stuff for him. And then you do the old hooting. Ho, 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 ho. Ho, ho, ho. Ho. Now remember that we haven't done an owl for ages, and you've got to watch for overfeeding. This owl's too warm. You know, it's amazing, when they're too warm they feed really badly. It makes such a lot of difference. Wonderful. No more noise. Ho, 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 ho. That's better.
Great to feed these things.
Ho, ho, ho. There's no doubt about it, owls are by far the most difficult of any of the babies to cope with. Now if you looked at that now, his eyes are tight shut. You'd never think he had them open. See how he's pushing it down with his head?
Yeah.
Either that or he's dying. Ho, ho, ho. Ho, ho, ho. Now, how much have you had? It's 43.9, so that's 1.9 grams. That's not bad, isn't it? Thank God for these scales. Actually, conservation of birds of prey in this country, in some ways, doesn't need a great deal because there are only 2 birds of prey in this country that are on the decline rather than on the increase of those birds that are liable to do well. I mean, if you look at things like the marsh harrier, it'll never build up to enormous numbers because there isn't enough habitat for it, and we've always been on the edge of its range anyway. And the snowy owl's well buggered at the moment because it's got 10 females on the Isle of Fetlar and no males, so it's not going to be exactly prolific. But the peregrines zooming up in numbers thanks to the stopping of the use of DBT as a pesticide. And so is the sparrowhawk because of the stopping of dieldrin. The kestrels and tawny owls have done brilliantly coping with towns and motorways and what have you. The only 2 that are really suffering are the barn owl and the merlin, and I'm hoping that people in this country will become much more aware of those 2 very soon. It's more abroad that worries me, because I think most of the problems abroad can and should be related to the Western world, to Britain, to Europe and to North America. because we are the users of the world's resources. We're a greedy bunch of so-and-sos. We throw away everything. The throwaway world is definitely here. You have to be an optimist with conservation, because if you look at the speed of the destruction in the world today, you might as well give up, because so many things are going to become extinct, without doubt.
Shut that up. There you are, look. One of this year's babies. This one was quite injured when it came in. It had bad legs. It was picked up on the road, and its legs were hurt. Yes. We couldn't use them at all then, but now we do this kind of thing. Look with it. We give it exercise so that it can perch, which it nearly can now. Look. There you are, look.
Yes.
It's gripping quite hard. But it still hasn't got any balance yet, really. It sort of just tends, it falls over. You notice how, look, how it keeps its head completely still. Look at that. Is that useful? And swaying around on a branch in the wind, it can keep its head perfectly still and see what's going on in the world. I think we'll feed this little one, don't you?
Yes.
Right, come on, big eyes. We need a name for this one as well, don't we?
Yes.
Right. You hold that. That's it. We'll try and get the bird really comfortable if we can.
Won't it eat if it isn't comfortable?
Not really, no. So what we do is very gently open the beak with the tweezers like this. There's a particular place there where you can slide the tweezers in very easily. Open the beak wide and make sure that the tongue isn't stuck to the roof of the mouth. Just pop it in. Now, owls don't actually have a crop like the other birds here, the other birds of prey here, and so the food goes straight down to the stomach. So we can tell how much the bird has eaten by feeling its stomach, if we know where to find it. So, that bit down. What you do is you feel here to hold him, or him, not entirely sure which. Got him?
Yes.
We'll give him his exercises now, shall we? Can I have him? You see, really, this is... this bird and the other birds that are brought in, the idea is to get them fit again so they can go back to the wild. It's a hospital. Now, that's what this part of the centre is, really, is a hospital. So the idea is to get them fit again so that they're able to fend for themselves. And we get a lot of birds brought in like this. Birds with broken limbs and that kind of thing, and that's usually pretty hard to get them. It's hard to get them right and released again. But occasionally we can find good homes for them anyway.
Yes.
Even though they don't mend properly. But sometimes we get babies brought in, and there's nothing wrong with the babies at all. People pick them up and bring them here, and they're probably doing the wrong thing, because those birds are probably just learning to fly and should be left completely alone. Mm. And then they can't remember where they picked them up, and so you know, it gives us problems. So let's give this little bird its exercise and just make sure that we use all the muscles and do some different kinds of exercises like that. And these legs are very, very much stronger than they were. He's actually pulling and pushing now.
There's 4 in here, so it's 3 to go, isn't it?
That's right. The one in the corner is the one with the drooping wing.
Whoa, you little buggers. Right, there's one for you. That one definitely can go. Adrian, this box has seen better days. We're always short of boxes, aren't we? Now this is the one that's lost a lot of primaries, isn't it?
That's the one.
Whoa, there.
Here's another road casualty.
He'll be a while before he can go, but Colonel Faithful says he's got another one that's going to take a while, so they can be in together.
Strange, isn't it?
Gone completely. I've never seen it before. Right, pop him in all. Don't bite. It's not nice.
Turn a bit more, Mum. There we go.
Oh, no. Liza, out. Come on, out you come. You're not coming. Not this time. Good girl.
The biggest problem with falconry is bad press. It's always good news to say that peregrines worth £5,000 each have been stolen. As soon as you say a bird's worth that sort of money, you're encouraging everyone to steal it. And I would say it's very unlikely there are falconers who steal birds of prey. It's much more likely to be those who don't give a damn about the birds and are only interested in trying to sell them for a high price. The birds that have been paid the most money for, in fact, are birds that have been bought by companies as a rich present to the Arabs. I knew of a gerfalcon that went for £18,000, but as the company was hoping to get a desalination plant that was worth £60 million, it was like giving you a box of chocolates. Most of the falconers I know wouldn't sell their bird for all the tea in China. There is undoubtedly a bad element in falconry, just the same as there is a bad element in every walk of life. The good side of it is very rarely shown. Now, if it wasn't for falconry, there would be nowhere near as much knowledge on injuries and illnesses in birds of prey. I now know more about birds of prey and their ailments than 90% of the vets in this country. Having birds of prey in captivity, the general public bring us wild ones who also need help. There must be thousands of birds of prey that are taken in by falconers at their own expense, looked after, fed, cared for, and they are then released back to the wild. And yet there is almost no other society that will accept those birds or has the capability of accepting those birds. The RSPB won't touch them with a barge pole, and most of the RSPCA people hand them on to falconers because they know full well they can't look after them. The same goes for falconers and breeding. Almost every captive breeding project in the world today has been started by falconers, who not only help to breed these birds of prey, but also help with the release programs back to the wild.
Hello. Hello, Nick. How nice to see you. Can you take...
I'll take that one.
The buzzard.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll...
What's in that big box?
That's the tawny owls. The sparrowhawk can stay here because someone else is coming.
That's right.
For her, isn't it?
Can you manage all that?
Yes. My boxes aren't very smart, but
No,
they'll
as
do.
long as they'll do the job.
I can't see a damn thing. Now, you've got some tawnies already, haven't you?
I released 16 earlier this year, altogether.
All in one go?
All in one go.
16?
It's far better to release a number together, because if you release one, the wild owls come in and give them a bad time.
But with
But if
16, they're outnumbered.
you release a number together, they well, they can't keep going at 16, and they get a chance.
Right.
No.
No, the tawnies
Which of the tawnies in this?
Yeah, in the big box.
Big box. I don't think that box will go through this little door.
No, I'll fish them out and hand them to you. Is that okay? Ow! Come here.
What holds you?
No, I've got it. You can always tell when they're getting well because they start to get ungrateful.
Oh yes.
Come on, Sonny
That's
Jim.
very usual.
Isn't
Oh, he's
she
nice.
nice?
He's very nice. Oh, that is a beautiful bird.
This is a nice red one, this girl.
Yeah, yeah. Come on.
They always look so miserable when you put them
Come
down,
on.
don't they? I'll shut the door.
Get a bit of a move on. That's it.
That one looks more than ready to go.
Oh, that one's fine, yes. There are 5, and these 2, that'll be 7 here that I think can go.
You want to come out now, Nick?
I think I'll come out, yes.
Right, well, thanks a million for taking them.
Still,
It's nice to know they're
only
going to
too
go
happy.
back. They take such a lot of effort, don't they, though?
And you can imagine them at about 9:45 each night, taking their food from this roof.
Is that where they go?
There they go.
So the little owls are coming in here?
Yeah. Well, now, this is a bit smelly in here because the barn owls are being hacked from here up till last night.
It smells like barn owls.
It smells a bit of barn owl, doesn't it? But we'll, let's just have a look.
Look at them!
Aren't they lovely? Now, what happens here, Mine, is that I shall get them as tame as I can so that they'll come to me for food. And I shall put most of their food up on this platform here.
Yeah.
And then, when they're quite tame and ready to go, I open this window, it folds down onto that brick, and then I start putting their food on there.
Ah.
And they feed there, and then they fly out at night, and the next day if I peep in, they're all back in here.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
See, we can't do it at home because all that happens is they go,
Yeah.
they come back for food, and then after a while, when we're trying to stop them from feeding and going on by themselves, they come in and they steal it from the eagles, and they end up being eaten by eagles
I
themselves.
can see that. Definitely. I think the prerequisite of hacking back is to live in a place like this, where there are
Miles
hills
away
and
from
miles
anyone.
of nothing.
So now you go in with the others.
So
There they are.
anyway, go with your pals.
Come on, go with the others. Huge head and eyes for such a tiny body, isn't it?
What I love about them is the way they suddenly go up.
Well, good luck, you three.
That's it.
Does she always make that noise when she sees you?
Yeah, she always does it every time she sees me.
Does
So do, baby.
she make it out hunting at all?
Occasionally if she's passing over. Come on, little one. There we go.
Do you want the hood?
Yes, please. Now then, what's this? Hmm? Come on. Come on. No, 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 no. There you go.
Smart hood, eh?
All
Right.
right. We're away.
Let's go.
Come on, little one. Steady, 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 steady.
Knitting this, isn't it?
Huh?
It's good knitting this.
Yeah, it's been up for a while, is that?
Right.
Falconers come from an enormous range of people right across the spectrum. Their unifying factor is they're all completely balmy. Or at least they're all balmy on birds of prey. And they can very rarely talk about anything else. A lot of the falconers chat away to their birds like normal people talk to their kids. The nice thing is that the good ones, and there are a lot of good ones, have not only a love of the birds that they fly, but they also thoroughly enjoy seeing birds of prey in the wild. And they also know and certainly respect the things they fly after.
There you go, baby. We're off.
I'll follow you, okay?
Like these spikes. I used to have some corks that I put on there, but as usual, I lost them first day out. So I have to warn everybody now. We'll take her right up to the top and into the wind before I cast her off.
The golden eagle is a case that stands on its own. I would say that there are very few people in this country who should have a golden eagle. They are big birds, they need a lot of space, they need to be handled with care. They're not as dangerous as a horse by any means, but they still could, by accident, hurt someone. I mean, you've only got to have somebody wearing a coat with a rabbit skin collar and have the guy not aware of his golden eagle and not warn the chap to turn his collar in and have somebody hurt. Not because the golden eagle's vicious or dangerous, but because it thinks the guy's got a rabbit behind his ear. So it piles in. People who fly golden eagles should be very responsible, any of the big eagles. And I think most of them are. That's why there are only about 30 golden eagles in captivity in this country.
It's a pleasure to be alive, isn't it, on a day like this? The last. You can't see him driving in the wind, can you? Huh? Yeah. 3 ways to go. What have you seen, eh? What have you seen? Ah, that's a good girl. Come on, swing out for your dad. Come on then.
Where do you reckon she spotted this?
Well, it's in that bottom, I think, somewhere. She's definitely seen something. And she's tried and tried and tried and tried to get lift and can't, so I think it's only fair we go and try and help her out, shall we?
Right, let's get your heart up there with her.
Now then, what's to do with you? What's to do? Having a good time? I think we'll give her a try here. About as much wind as there's going to be around here. Nah, it's not enough. She's got her wings up. Right, lady.
There's one.
I've never had any problems with the anti-blood sports people in regard to falconry, and I'm probably in a more public position than most falconers. Most of the real anti-blood sports people think that it's a fairer blood sport than most. Certainly I feel a tremendous affection to the things that I chase, which may sound totally ludicrous. But I like rabbits, and I'm delighted when I have a really good chase and the rabbit gets away. Quite often I think falconers are cheering the rabbits on just as much as they are the birds. But you have the pleasure of watching the bird fly even if it doesn't necessarily catch something. And you also have the pleasure of eating pheasants or rabbits or whatever else occasionally as well. Because you must always use what you kill. You must never ever kill something and not use it. I'm very much against that. Not that I've ever eaten mice that I've caught. Most people think of conservation as a job belonging to conservationists who are people who are slightly peculiar. They have to be mad as a hatter and only interested in animals, and I don't believe that. I think that conservation is the job of every single one of us, because the basic cause of the decline of so many animals are the everyday things we have around us. So I think it's vital to be able to teach people. It's very difficult to sway adult minds. They've got fixed in a groove by the time they're adults and they don't want to change their minds. Whereas kids are very open-minded and you can teach them a great deal just by showing them things and letting them have a good time. And if you talk not so much about the falconry side of it, but about the conservation and what birds they've seen in the wild and what have you, you really can get the message over to them in a way that they'll remember for all of their lives, so that they have a background by the time they're adult. They have a great awareness about what's going on around them and how they can affect wildlife by just being careful in their everyday lives. Now I've got 3 birds to show you. I know you can only see one, but there are 3. And one of them's still in the car. I'm not going to get her out till the very end. One of them you can see sitting here. This is Eleanor. She's called a Harris hawk. Can anyone guess what's in there?
An owl.
Yeah, let's see if we can get him to say hello. Curly, Curly, oh. I've got the only hooting box in the world. And then there's this thing. Now you all realise that wasn't a bird, didn't you? What is it? Oh, good, that's marvellous. What are you doing on there, Bramble? You horrible thing. Now, I bring her along for 2 reasons. The first reason is that she usually goes wherever I go, and the second reason is that so many of people, when they see birds of prey, leap backwards and say, oh my God, dangerous things, pick up babies out of prams and all sorts of other things. And yet they'll go up to old Bramble here and stroke her and say hello without even worrying at all. And yet this thing here is much more dangerous, or could be much more dangerous than any bird of prey. Look at this lot. Excuse me. Show them. Open. Good girl. Now those could do you some fearful damage if they wanted to, couldn't they? Now, can anyone here tell me what the word conservation means? Well, that's not bad. An awful lot of schools I go to, nobody puts their hand up.
Preserve and look after.
What?
Animals.
Yes, anything else?
Endangered species.
Oh, well done, yes. That could be anything, couldn't it? Do you know what the 2 major reasons if any animal or bird or fish is getting very rare today?
The wildlife where they live, their habitat, is getting destroyed.
I say, pretty good. Did you know what the word habitat meant? Hands up anyone who didn't know. Well done for telling me. After all, if you don't tell me, I won't know you don't know, will I? Did you know?
Yeah.
Can you tell them what it means?
It means where they live.
That's right, where they live. Yes, now, what's this?
Table.
10 out of 10, it's a table, well done. What's it made of? Which came from, which she lived in, right? So you see what I mean? We're using up their habitat. It's just as if Eleanor came to your house 7:30 every morning, and each morning she arrived, she stole a brick. And she kept coming morning after morning after morning. What would happen in the end?
You'd have nothing left.
You'd have nothing left. And every time we take down a tree, without replanting another one, we're taking away a brick from her home. Would you mind if I flew her for you? Are you all going to be frightened to death? Sure? Yes. I've told you how nice they all are, haven't I? And she might not do anything because she's fat as a pig. Now this is Eleanor. We'll put her on the television and just see if she'll come across the hall, come across the classroom. Turn round. Don't worry, she won't hurt you. Okay, you ready? So let her get settled. Come on. She's just viewing you out. There's a good girl. What's the matter? You're not. As you can see, she hasn't eaten any of you. You're still all in one piece. Anyone missing anything? I'll get Curly out for you, my hooting box. Come on, don't hiss at me, you. Come on, up you get. Now, Curly, will you say hello to them, please? Curly? Ooh. Good boy. Now, look what I can do with his head, for starters. Are you ready? Are you concentrating? I have to get him really concentrating first. Concentrate. Look there, okay? You ready? No. Concentrate, right. If he really concentrates, I can... Clever, eh? All the way round. And what a good boy. Are you a good boy? Ooh. Yeah. Curly, show me your wings, please. Put your hands down, be nice and quiet, and I'll go and get the eagle in. I suppose you want to see her wingspan. Bit bigger, isn't it? Now, HEIDI's what we call a white-bellied sea eagle. Now, HEIDI is about 14 years old. Can you see how rough the scales on her feet are? Just right for catching slippery fish. Right, the most important thing I've got to say before I go. Do you remember we started off by talking about that word conservation? Now, it's not just up to weird people like me to try and conserve birds of prey. You can help in your everyday life. You remember we started talking about wood and tables and front doors and things? Well, what do you use in school stacks of that comes from trees? Paper. Do you all blow your nose on handkerchiefs? Yes. You all write on it? Yes. You have paper bags full of things made out of it? Christmas cards? Yes. Any minute now, Valentine's cards? Yes. The way you can be conservationists is to be careful. Try from now on, every time you use a piece of paper, not to waste it. If you can use both sides of it rather than only one and throwing it away. When you go shopping, don't have a paper bag unless you really need it. I'm saving all my Christmas cards this year and I'm going to reuse them all again next year. Which sounds dreadful, but think how many trees you lot here could save over your lifetime if you were just a bit careful. Do you think you could try for me? Yes. Right, well you make sure that these birds are around for a very long time because it's up to you.